For the first time since 1977, two GSL teams have made it to the quarterfinals and will have a rematch of a regular season game. And, Rich, I think just about everybody here on both sides doesn't expect it to be as big a margin as it was during the regular season when Prep beat Ferris 41-0.
Yeah, 41-0. Then you talk about preparation for the game. I think it's easier to prepare for a game like this. If you've been beaten 41-0, you can look on film and say, what did we do wrong? Whereas Gonzaga Prep looks at the films and said, hey, everything we did was right.
The Ferris Saxons in their first ever playoff game, knocking off Richland last week in the Tri-Cities, 22-20. The Saxons have changed both offensively and defensively since that loss to Prep. One of the standouts in their new one-back look on offense, and a guy who'll have to have a big game again tonight, is Clint Morton.
Yeah, he's their second leading receiver. He's their leading rusher. It's interesting. You hear all about the three receivers. He's very much like a Steve Broussard. He's the lone tailback, and he's the crux of their offense right now.
Quarterback Lien did not have a good game for the Saxons the first time that they faced the Bullpups, due in part to outstanding defensive work by a good Bullpup defense. They'll have to do the same again tonight. One of the keys will be safety Chad Bird, a guy who will be called on in coverage, but who also comes up in a hurry on run support.
Well, G-Prep has done a great job this year of disguising their coverages, and one of the reasons they can come up on the run support is the play of Skip Slavin and Sean Stillion, their defensive ends. Stand up, sit down, they rush the passer, they cover the pass. They do a lot of things. They make that defense work.
The Bullpups ranked number 2 in the state, the highest remaining team in the state in the playoffs. Ferris, of course, unranked coming into the playoff action. We'll be back with the starting lineups and a lot more right after this. Including a 41-0 win earlier this season. The biggest win ever by Prep, 64-0 in 1968. The biggest Ferris win was 43-0 in 1971. And by the way, the Saxons do have a short win streak in the series as well. Ferris winning 5 in a row in 1970, 2 games in 71, and 2 games in 72, back when GSL teams, or actually GSL teams played each other twice during a season. You saw Don Anderson, the Prep head coach, and their Pat Pfeifer. As we mentioned, the Saxons winning their first ever playoff game last week down in Richland by a score of 22-20 over the Richland Bombers.
We talked about keys earlier before we got on here, Todd. Let's talk about some of the keys that Ferris has to concentrate on if they want to, stay in this football game. 41-0, they were blown out in that first game. I think the biggest key for them is field position. Forcing Gonzaga Prep to go 80 yards opening kickoff would be nice. But if Gonzaga Prep continually starts drives in this first half from right around midfield, Ferris could be in trouble.
Captains coming out, you see there for Ferris, their captains coming out are fullback Miles Hanon and linebacker Bruce Backlund, while for Gonzaga Prep, quarterback Graham Pederson, right guard Glen Cavanaugh, and defensive tackle Dinny Hansen. I think psychologically Ferris has to overcome that a little bit, Rich, knowing that they did lose that first game and did not have a good performance, but they have improved so much since then, and of course came away with that big win last week, so things are in a little bit better shape for them there.
Certainly, and they've improved every week since that Ferris game. Field position's one big thing. Ferris, Gonzaga Prep is a team, Todd, that not only are they dominant defensively and offensively, but special teams is often overlooked with this G-Prep team, and that's a facet of their game that is really dominated. They're a team that blocks a lot of punts. They get a lot of interceptions. They return some interceptions for touchdowns. Hey, special team's a big part of this G-Prep football team.
You see Ferris has won the coin toss and is elected to defer until the second half. So Gonzaga Prep says, we'll take the ball. You saw Graham Pederson saying, we'll take the ball. So the Bullpups will start out with the football, and we'll take a look as they stack everybody around. Well, we won't see that, but the officials are signaling that Prep will receive to start the game.
And I think Pat Pfeifer is thinking field position with that decision right there, Todd. He wants to kick off, get his defense on the field first, try to set the tone with a few big hits, maybe force G-Prep to punt, and then pick the ball, pick up the ball with pretty good field position.
So it'll be Gonzaga Prep, and maybe while we have a quick second here, we can take a look at the starting lineup for the Bullpups and talk about that a little bit. A very experienced group and a team very used to playing with one another. Across the front, Yarbro, a junior at 255, Mcquesten, a senior, 185, Schmutz, junior at 190, Cavanaugh, the big guard, 265, and Schnug, the senior, 240. Saw him pulling several times impressively last week. Chris Carpenter, 30 catches in a great game last week.
And watch, Todd, when they split him out, almost half the time when he gets split off the line, they throw it to him.
He is the favorite target of Graham Pederson. In fact, 60% of Pederson's completions have gone to Carpenter. 30 out of the 50 he's completed. Graham Pederson with better than 172 yards of total offense a game. Matt Bird, fullback, senior 185. Jim Branson, the left half, the junior 175. John Bird, the senior at right half, 175. And Jeff Valley gets the start at the wide receiver, the senior 155-pounder. Doug Birdtail set to kick off for Ferris. Kind of an interesting friendly rivalry between the two kickers a little bit tonight. Birdtail for Ferris and H.J. Digert, a Gonzaga Prep, good friends who spent time together during the summer, worked on kicking. We'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go along. Birdtail set to kick off. Back for the Bullpups at the far side is John Bird, and the near side, Jim Branson. You see Birdtail ready to give the ball a ride. Branson backpedaling. This one will go deep into the end zone and go. As we said, H.J. Digert and Birdtail, good friends. And last week, they talked to each other a lot during the season. Last week, just before the Richland-Ferris game, they were on the phone with one another, and Digert said, "Hey, Doug, do you have shoes?" And Birdtail only had AstroTurf shoes, used to kicking at Albee Stadium, so H.J. Digert loaned him a pair of his soccer shoes because they were playing on the dirt and the turf down there at the Bomber Bowl. Birdtail goes down, kicks 4 field goals, comes up just short with the, or 3 field goals rather, just short with the 53-yarder, and helped defeat Richland. So an interesting story, a couple of friendly rivals in action tonight. You see Graham Pederson set to call an opening play from scrimmage for the Bullpups from their own 20. Branson. Ball popped loose. The officials ruled that he was down before the fumble. Joe Green leading the tacklers for Ferris, and the Saxons almost got an early break there. Green along with Bruce Backlund on that far side. You can see Backlund right there. He's really fired up in the defensive huddle. Green, Williams, Wargo up front. Linebacking core of Backlund, Colquhoun, Hanon, Hoskins, Clark, Baggot. Goncalves is new. He's just added after that track injury. He's one of the new additions and part of the new and improved Ferris defense. Goncalves gets the free safety start. Baggot moving to one of the corners to replace Dean Justice, but everybody will see action tonight for the Saxons. Tackle for loss in the backfield. Robb Wargo will make the stop on Bird. John Bird dropped for the loss, and the Saxons getting the defense they wanted on the first couple plays. It'll be 3rd and 10 for the Bullpups. You see Wargo there, all 280 pounds of them. Look at them. They are fired up in the huddle right now, Todd. Good penetration by the defensive line on both plays. This is a much improved Ferris defensive unit over the past weeks, and did a good job defensively against Richland. Gave up some TDs, of course, to a talented Bomber offense. Carpenter is split out. Let's see if they go to him right away. 3rd and 10. Lots of time for Pederson. He'll loft one over the head of Bird. Good coverage there by Jason Hoskins from the linebacker spot, forcing Graham Pederson to alter the trajectory. Had to really try to throw a rainbow there. Yeah, Carpenter, who was at the top of your screen at the start of that play, was running a post pattern. They had double coverage on him, and it forced Pederson to go over and just throw it away. That's not a bad incompletion, though. Rather than throw the interception, just get rid of it. You can see he has made great decisions on the year, Todd. He's only thrown 1 pick. You see, and that came in the first game of the season, by the way. Pederson will punt now, as opposed to Chris Carpenter, so an interesting change there. Pederson taking over the punting duties, Carpenter handling them up until now. And a good high kick by Graham Pederson. Fair catch signaled for by Joe Baggot. He'll take it at the Ferris 43-yard line, and the Saxons will start from there. And by deferring the kickoff, Pat Pfeifer couldn't have scripted it any better, Todd. His defense comes in, 3 good plays, and they get the ball right around midfield. So the Saxons will go to work, as you see Dan Lien and his teammates coming out in the huddle. 1.5 minutes gone here in the game. Prep 3 and off, something they're not used to from their opening offensive series. And Ferris immediately in the 4 wide out set. Single back is Morton. And they'll get the jump. A little bit over eagle nose guard Mark Russell broke the plane. And Saxons will get a 1st and 5. His helmet just touched that of the center's Pat McCann. Of course, remember in the high school, in the encroachment, once you break that zone, there's no getting back at all. We take a look at the lineup for Ferris. Williams, a junior at 240.